Good evening, class. Let's jump in. According to Ahaya and Bacone 2017, the top 5 ethical violations are as followed, ranked in order by the number of occurrences. Failed to meet continuing education requirements, dual relationships, unprofessional conduct, provided counseling without proper licensing, and convicted of a non-counseling related crime. Depending on the violation, the punishment can be very severe to somewhat minor. The most common disciplinary action resulted in a fine, mandatory continuing education, reprimand, indefinite suspension, probation, or revocation of the counselor's license. After reviewing the list, I was surprised that not meeting continuing education requirements were consistently at the top of the list of ethical violations. I would have thought this would be an easy thing to accomplish, but apparently counselors are just too busy to fit that into their schedules. The court case I chose to discuss is a court case from 2002 in which a licensed professional counselor, LPC, was reprimanded by the Board of Counselors in Maine for operating beyond the scope of her license. Specifically, it alleged that she had diagnosed and treated mental health disorders which were beyond the scope of her LPC license. Under Maine state law, only licensed clinical professional counselors, licensed pastoral counselors, and licensed marriage and family therapists are of equivalent clinical status, which grants the ability to diagnose and treat mental health disorders. The ACA Code of Ethics, which was violated, was C2A, which talks about boundaries of competence, which states that counselors practice only within the boundaries of their competence, based on their education, training, supervised experience, state, national professional credentials, and appropriate professional experience. The State of Maine Code violation is Code of Ethics, Chapter 8A, Section 3.1, which discusses competency, and in particular, counselors practicing in an area in which the licensee has not obtained professional training. The result was that the board censured counselor, imposed a fine of $500 and costs of $500, and ordered her to receive 30 hours of supervision. Counselor impairment. The ACA Code of Ethics addresses impairment in Section C2G, which says counselors monitor themselves for signs of impairment from their own physical, mental, or emotional problems and refrain from offering or providing professional services when impaired. Maine has its own code, which falls under competence, which is misconduct, and says misconduct includes failing to seek appropriate professional assistance for the licensee's or registrant's own personal problems or conflicts when they are likely to lead to inadequate services to the client. The question that comes to mind is how exactly do they determine if a counselor is impaired? It seems like it is rather a murky, gray area that would be somewhat difficult to legally prove. Thank you, and have a good evening, and God bless.